The first sound was a clicking. Not just any clicking. A wall of camera shutters, snapping in uneven bursts like nervous heartbeats. They bounced off the marble walls of the San Francisco courthouse, turning the air electric. The morning sun spilled through tall glass windows, slicing the room into stripes of gold and shadow. At the center of it all, a man in a tailored navy suit sat stiff-backed at the defendant's table. His jaw worked in slow, deliberate motions, like he was chewing on something bitter. The cuff of his white shirt gleamed just enough of the gold cufflink to wink in the light. A tiny, arrogant nod to his status. Across from him, a woman leaned over a heavy stack of papers. Her coat was simple, charcoal wool, the kind you buy on clearance but keep for years. She moved like she didn't want to give the cameras anything flashy, but when she picked up the pen, her hand was steady as stone. The pen tip scratched across the paper. A quiet sound somehow louder than all the shutters. She didn't look at him when she signed. He didn't look at her either. But if you'd been close enough to see the corner of his mouth twitch, just barely, you'd know he was smiling without letting the smile show. That was Oliver Crane, founder and CEO of one of Silicon Valley's most aggressively marketed startups. The kind of man the business magazines called a visionary because no one had ever seen him lose. Until now. And the woman? Her name was Maya Lopez. Until a year ago, she'd been the kind of employee who didn't even get her own business cards. Flashback 8 months. The startup's 22nd floor headquarters looked like every Instagram influencer's fantasy of work. Exposed brick, soft leather couches, wall-to-wall windows spilling out over the skyline of San Francisco. On a winter night, the city glowed like an open jewelry box. Inside, most desks were empty, except one. Maya sat at a corner table with a dented travel mug beside her laptop. Her hair was pulled back loosely, strands escaping to catch the blue light from her screen. The office smelled faintly of burnt espresso and cold takeout. Her inbox was still stacked high, but she wasn't working on emails. She was rewriting the pitch deck for a new product concept, a way to integrate small-scale creators into the company's core app, giving them revenue control. It wasn't her job to create this. She wasn't in product development. She wasn't in sales. She was a junior marketing assistant. But she'd been watching, really watching, how their users behaved. She'd seen a gap. And in this city, a good gap was worth millions. Her fingers moved fast, almost feverish, sliding images into the deck, adjusting font kerning until every page felt like a punch. At one point, she stopped, leaned back, and looked at it the way you look at a photo you're not sure you're ready to share. Her gut twisted, equal parts pride and fear. That's when the voice came from behind her. Burning the midnight oil? She turned. Oliver Crane stood in the doorway of his glass-walled office, tie loosened, whiskey glass in hand. He wasn't supposed to be here. The CEO didn't usually wander the floor at night. His eyes flicked to her screen before she could minimize it. "That's interesting," he said slowly, stepping closer. The warmth in his voice was the kind people mistook for kindness. "Is this for a client?" "No," she said. "Just something I've been working on." Oliver leaned over, scrolling through the deck without asking. "I like it," he said finally. "This could go somewhere." He paused, swirling the ice in his glass. "Mind if I borrow it? I've got a meeting tomorrow. I might float the concept." Her throat tightened. "Borrow it?" she asked. "Just to get a feel for the reaction," he said, smiling now. "You know how it is. No harm in testing an idea. We'll circle back if it lands." She told herself it was fine. It was just a test. 2 days later, she was invited to sit in the back of the main conference room for an investor pitch. She wasn't on the agenda, just told to observe and learn from her seat near the wall. She could see the investors' sharp suits, colder eyes. She could see Oliver at the head of the table, his presence calibrated for maximum command. And then, slide by slide, she saw her work unfold. Word for word, graphic for graphic. Her examples, her numbers, the exact language she'd agonized over until 2 in the morning. The investors leaned in, nodding. Oliver smiled like a man who'd caught lightning in a jar. He didn't mention her name once. By the end, her coffee had gone cold in her hands. She didn't clap when the investors did. She just sat there, heat climbing her neck, feeling something inside her shift, something sharp and dangerous clicking into place. When Oliver left the room with the investors, shaking hands like a king among courtiers, she stayed seated, staring at the screen's final slide. The room smelled faintly of Oliver's cologne and the expensive leather chairs. The hum of the projector filled the silence. And then she whispered to herself, words she didn't even realize she'd said out loud. That's the last time. She didn't even hear the words leave her lips until they hung there, soft and final, like the faint echo after a slammed door. The screen still glowed in front of her, the company logo glaring in white against deep blue. Her fingertips brushed the edge of the table, cool, polished oak. And for the first time since she'd started here, she didn't feel like she belonged to this place. She felt like she was standing just outside of it, looking in through glass. When she left the conference room, the hallway was quiet. The kind of quiet you get in corporate towers after hours. A blanket of hums from vending machines and faint beeps from printers cooling down. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Bay Bridge shimmered against a dark sky. Somewhere far below, a siren wailed and faded. At her desk, the cup of cold coffee still waited. She dumped it in the sink without a sound. The bitterness had already lodged somewhere else. Not on her tongue, but in her chest. The next few days blurred into the kind of grind that feels like drowning while smiling for the camera. Oliver was everywhere. Walking the floor, backslapping team leads, sending motivational emails about innovation culture. There was a new energy in the air. People whispered about the investor pitch like it had been a miracle. Everyone knew it was his idea now. And Maya, she was suddenly invisible. Meetings she used to take notes for were reassigned. Projects she'd been spearheading quietly shifted to other people. Her calendar shrank by the day. At lunch one afternoon, she overheard two junior designers in the break room. He's talking about rolling out a beta next quarter, one said, lowering her voice. Already? That's insane. Apparently, he's been working on it for months. Maya gripped the plastic fork in her hand until the tines bent. Months? No. She knew exactly when the idea had been born. Right there under her desk lamp with cold pizza and a shaky Wi-Fi signal. But the story had changed. In this building, the truth didn't matter once the boss decided otherwise. Then came the first email. Subject, confidential. Updated NDA requirements. The company's legal department was refreshing agreements for all employees involved with sensitive projects. Attached was a multi-page non-disclosure contract. Thicker, more aggressive than the one she'd signed when she was hired. It was heavy with clauses about intellectual property, and one section in particular made her stomach dip. Any ideas, proposals, or concepts discussed within company spaces are the sole property of company name. She read it twice, then a third time, her eyes tracing the sharp little hooks hidden in the legalese. Sign this, and it would be like admitting she'd never had a claim at all. When she didn't respond right away, an email from HR followed. Please sign and return at your earliest convenience. The earliest convenience landed in her inbox like a warning shot. That Friday, Oliver himself appeared at her desk. You get the new NDA? He asked, leaning casually against the divider. The light from the window haloed his head, but it only made the sharp lines of his smile look sharper. Yeah, she said, keeping her tone even. Good, he said, tapping the desk with two fingers. We've got some big moves coming up. Need everyone aligned. He straightened, adjusting his cufflink like it was part of the conversation. You've been a real asset, Maya. Keep doing what you're doing. The compliment was so cleanly delivered it almost masked the threat beneath it. Almost. That night, she didn't go straight home. She walked 2 blocks past her bus stop to a little place called Cafe Tilda. Dim lighting, chip mugs. The smell of burnt sugar and cinnamon baked into the air. It was half empty. The kind of quiet that made you want to speak in low voices. She pulled out her laptop and opened the pitch deck. Her pitch deck. Slide by slide, she checked the metadata, timestamps, save history. The files didn't lie. They knew when they were created, who created them. And if she could keep them safe, maybe they could speak for her when she couldn't. But as her coffee cooled, she realized something else. If he was already rolling this into a beta, she was running out of time. On Monday, she sat in on a marketing sync meeting, the kind where everyone tries to look busy while pretending to brainstorm. The new project lead, a guy who'd been at the company for 3 months, was presenting rollout schedules. As he clicked through the slides, she saw her words again, her exact copy, in mock-ups and taglines. The same phrasing she stayed up past midnight refining. When the meeting ended, she lingered in the hallway, waiting until the room emptied. Then she slipped back inside and, with her phone, photographed every slide on the conference screen. The lens caught the faint glow of the projector, the dust motes drifting in the beam of light. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment the balance shifted, the first seed of evidence planted. 2 days later, she got a Slack message from someone she barely knew, a data analyst named Priya. "Hey, random question. Did you work on the creator integration deck?" Maya stared at the screen. "Why?" There was a long pause before Priya replied. "Because I saw your name in the early drafts. And now it's gone." Maya's pulse quickened. She typed back quickly. "We should talk." By the time they met, in the echoey stairwell between floors, away from cameras and glass walls, Maya already knew this wasn't just about her. Priya had her own story. A feature she'd prototyped, stripped her name and rolled into Oliver's pet project. They exchanged details like survivors comparing maps of the same fire. And when they parted, Maya knew 2 things. 1, she wasn't alone. 2, Oliver Crane didn't just steal. He erased it. And erasing people was something she wasn't about to let happen again. The thought stayed with her like the aftertaste of something metallic, bitter, impossible to ignore. By the time she left the stairwell, the evening rain had begun, smearing the city lights into watercolor streaks across the glass facade. She paused by the window, watching the street below. People hurried under umbrellas. Headlights cut through the slick pavement. And every so often, a horn pierced the hush. It felt like the whole city was moving with purpose. Except her, standing still, calculating. If he could erase Priya and erase her, how many others had been wiped out before? That night, Maya spread her laptop, notebook, and phone across her kitchen table. The only light came from the overhead fixture, buzzing faintly, casting hard shadows. Her phone was on speaker, Priya's voice steady but low. "I've still got the prototype files," Priya said, with the original code timestamps. "But if he finds out I shared them." "I know," Maya said. "That's why we don't let him know." Between them, they began to piece together a picture, not just of stolen ideas, but a pattern. Employee after employee whose work evolved mysteriously into Oliver's big announcements. NDA rewrites sent after the fact. Names quietly scrubbed from internal documents. It was a theft machine disguised as a company. Every keystroke felt heavier. Every click of a folder was like opening a locked drawer. By the weekend, Maya had gone deeper. She pulled her company badge from her coat pocket and stared at it for a long moment before deciding she was going back to the office after hours. The lobby at night felt wrong. Too open, too clean, the receptionist's desk empty. Her shoes echoed on the marble floor. She took the elevator to the 22nd floor, the hum of machinery filling the silence. The office was dim except for the green glow of exit signs. Her heart thudded in her ears as she crossed to the glass-walled conference room. Inside, a whiteboard still bore half-erased notes from a strategy session. She ran her fingers over faint marker stains, tracing letters until she reached the corner where a stack of printed decks sat. She flipped through them, page after page of her words and designs. Only now, they were labeled Oliver Crane, Proprietary Vision Document. The arrogance of it almost made her laugh. Almost. She took photos of every page. The next piece fell into her lap 2 days later. She was walking past the executive assistant's desk when a courier dropped off a thick, sealed envelope marked confidential, investor relations. She didn't touch it, didn't even pause. But a few hours later, in the chaos of a lunchtime rush, she spotted the assistant in the break room. The envelope sat unattended on the desk. Maya's breath caught. This was reckless, dangerous, but her feet moved before her head could stop them. She slid her phone from her pocket, snapping a quick photo of the envelope's return address, a rival investment firm. one known for backing hostile takeovers. That night, she called Priya again. "He's trying to sell it," Maya said. "The product, before it even launches." "To who?" "Investors who get the company and keep the IP. He gets the payout, we lose everything." Priya was silent for a long moment. "Then we have to move faster." They began to meet regularly. Not in cafes or stairwells anymore, but in a rented co-working space across town. It smelled faintly of wood polish and stale coffee, the kind of place no one paid attention to. They'd bring laptops, scan through old email threads, and quietly contact ex-employees. Some hung up the moment Oliver's name came up. Others, bitter and cautious, shared scraps of evidence. Early drafts, saved chat logs, old meeting invites. With each piece, the shape of the case grew clearer, but so did the danger. One Tuesday evening, Maya returned to her desk after a bathroom break to find her laptop screen awake, a document open that she hadn't touched all day. It was one of her own pitch drafts. Only someone had been in it. She glanced around. No one was looking her way, but a faint shiver ran up her spine. They knew, or at least they suspected. By the end of that week, she had enough to build a real legal case. Timestamps, file histories, witness statements. But the real break came when Priya forwarded her a private calendar invite accidentally sent to the wrong list. Investor strategy dinner, confidential. Oliver was meeting with the rival firm that Friday. The plan formed instantly. If she could get proof of the meeting's purpose, a recording, a document, anything, she could expose him before the deal closed. But she had to be there. And if she was caught, there'd be no walking back into the office Monday morning. Outside, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened under streetlights, the air smelling faintly of ozone and wet concrete. Maya stood at the corner, gripping her phone, her reflection staring back at her in a darkened storefront. This was it, the point where the fight stopped being quiet. She could feel it in her pulse, sharp, insistent, like the ticking of a countdown clock only she could hear. By Friday evening, she was dressed the part. A sleek black dress, hair pulled into a clean low bun, minimal jewelry. Just enough to blend in among the investors' set, without drawing questions. The air outside was brisk, the kind of coastal chill that slid under your coat and settled in your bones. The hotel where the dinner was being held loomed like a cathedral of glass and steel. Its lobby was all marble floors, golden uplighting, and a faint smell of orchids from a polished centerpiece. Maya's heels clicked softly as she crossed the expanse, her eyes scanning for the private dining entrance Priya had described. She found it at the far end, double doors guarded by a maitre d', with the kind of posture that said this is for people more important than you. But she had come prepared. "Investors Party Crane Technologies," she said, her voice steady, bored even, like she'd been to a dozen of these. She handed him a folded sheet, an old internal memo she dressed up with a fake header and RSVP stamp. He glanced at it, then at her, and stepped aside. The room was warm and dim, lit by low-hanging chandeliers that bathed the polish with tables in amber. Wine glasses sparkled, silverware gleamed, and laughter rose and fell like a tide. Oliver was at the head table, sleeves rolled up just enough to seem approachable, his watch catching the light each time he gestured. She slid into a seat at the far end, 2 tables away, positioning herself so the mirror on the opposite wall reflected his side profile. From here, she could see him lean toward a man with silver hair and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. The rival investor. The waitstaff moved like shadows, delivering plates of seared salmon, roasted vegetables, and wine that caught the room's golden light. Maya barely touched hers. Instead, her phone rested discreetly in her lap, camera open, audio recorder running. The first half hour was harmless chatter. Market trends, conference gossip, the kind of mutual back-patting that came with too much Chardonnay. Then Oliver's voice shifted, lower, deliberate, and with the beta launch locked in, all we need is your backing to push out the original team. Keep the IP clean, make it ours exclusively. Maya's stomach tightened. Push out the original team. That was it. That was her and Priya, and everyone else he gutted. She angled her phone ever so slightly, catching the investor's reply. "And your employees? No risk of them claiming prior ownership." Oliver laughed. Easy and confident. Not a chance. We got airtight NDAs. The idea's as good as mine. Her thumb pressed the record button harder, as if she could etch the sound into the phone's memory forever. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. She could smell the charred edge of the salmon, the faint citrus of someone's aftershave nearby. Every detail sharpened, like the moment before a storm breaks. She waited until dessert was served before making her move. Slipping away from the table, she ducked into the hallway, heart pounding. From her clutch, she pulled a small portable drive and plugged it into her phone. The file transferred in seconds, proof, compressed, and ready. She was almost at the lobby when a voice stopped her cold. "Maya?" She turned. Oliver stood a few feet away, framed by the doorway's light, his smile gone. "What are you doing here?" His tone wasn't loud, but it was enough to draw the attention of a couple passing waiters. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to match his. "Just having dinner." His eyes flicked to her bag, then back to her face. The calculation there was instant and dangerous. "Be careful, Maya. You don't know what you're getting into." She held his gaze. "Neither do you." By the time she reached the street, the night air hit her like a slap, cold, clean, electric. She didn't go home. She went straight to the office of the rival investor's biggest competitor, the one known for playing long games. Inside the lobby, she handed the receptionist a drive and a business card with her number scrawled across it. "Tell him," she said, "it's about Oliver Crane, and he's going to want to hear this tonight." The receptionist's brows lifted slightly, but she took the drive and disappeared into a back office. Maya didn't wait for questions. She stepped back into the night, the city wind biting at her cheeks, the glow of the street lamps turning every drop of rain into tiny sparks. She didn't need to see the conversation. She knew that in some corner office, a man in a tailored suit would be watching her shaky phone footage, hearing Oliver's own voice promise the gutting of his team. And she knew what would come next. The first shot landed 3 days later. An anonymous leak hit the inboxes of 3 major tech reporters. It contained clips from the dinner, annotated with meeting notes, financial projections, and the timeline of stolen IP. By noon, it was on the front page of TechWire, The Verge, and the San Francisco Chronicle. The footage wasn't flashy. No yelling, no dramatic confrontations. Just Oliver, calm and certain, outlining how to take what wasn't his. But that was the beauty of it. It was quiet corruption, captured in perfect clarity. Maya watched it unfold from her small kitchen table, a mug of coffee growing cold beside her. Her phone lit up with news alerts, social media tags, and a single text from Priya. "It's starting." The headlines multiplied by the hour. Crane Technologies under fire for IP theft. Insiders detail pattern of employee erasure. Investors pull support amid scandal. The board called an emergency meeting. She wasn't invited, but she didn't need to be. By that evening, Oliver's smiling headshot had been replaced on the company website with the words "interim CEO" to be announced. The court case came next. It was public, it was brutal, and it was surgical. Maya's timestamps, Priya's prototype files, and the testimonies of ex-employees painted a picture so airtight that Oliver's legal team barely tried to argue ownership. The judge's gavel sounded sharp in the high-ceiling courtroom as the verdict came down. Full transfer of the disputed products rights to Maya and Priya's newly formed company, financial restitution. And, in a twist almost too poetic to be real, Oliver was ordered to surrender his remaining shares in Crane Technologies to settle damages, handing her controlling interest. The day she walked into the building as its new CEO, the air smelled faintly of fresh paint and lemon polish. The glass doors reflected her in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not the underpaid assistant shuffling with coffee, but someone who had fought her way to the top floor. Employees lined the hallway. Some smiled openly. Others just watched, cautious, as if waiting to see if she'd become what she fought against. She nodded to them all, her heels striking the same marble she used to cross in silence. Oliver's office was stripped bare except for the heavy oak desk and the view of the city skyline. She stood behind it, placing her hands on the cool wood, letting the moment settle in her chest. That night, as the city lights stretched out below, Priya joined her in the office. They toasted with cheap champagne and coffee mugs. To making it ours, Priya said. Maya smiled. To never letting it be as again. But as the building emptied and the hum of the HVAC filled the quiet, Maya found herself staring at an envelope left on her desk. No return address. Just her name, written in an unfamiliar hand. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single flash drive and a sticky note. You think Oliver was the worst. He was just the first. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a low fog rolled over San Francisco, swallowing the city in pale gray. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, long, low, and fading. And in her chest, that countdown clock began again.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Echoed Crime content. Thank you.